Oh, I was like, now I know what you're saying.
All right. Well, let's call this meeting to order at 7:04.
Yep.
And John.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So minutes. Yeah, I thought I sent them out. got them done a long time ago. So I just sent them out just now. So I guess they'll have to be tabled since nobody's read them. I was looking to see past emails, but I can't find it. So apparently I didn't send it.
Yeah, I don't recall getting the minutes.
Okay, now you got them, but okay. Sorry about that. I did them while I was on vacation.
Yeah,
So
but I
they're
thought
ready.
you sent those out.
Do we want to table it for the next meeting, or do we want to take a moment to glance through them?
It's up to you guys. If everybody's on email, you can check, you can open them real quick.
I have to go get my phone.
Yeah, that's really weird. I was sure I sent them out. I was proud of myself for getting them done early.
What's the matter, Dan? You don't have your mobile phone with you? You can't read the minutes?
I don't see them in my email.
I just sent it just now.
Well, okay. It might be it's going, it has to go up to like outer space and come back down to the earth. So it takes a minute. I get it.
Do we just want to table it for next time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we'll table
That way it's equitable. Everyone has the chance to read them on their own time instead of a
Sounds
couple of
good.
us.
Okay.
All right, tabled.
All right.
And
You look
the
really
treasury
nice.
report is tabled, so that brings us to Gabe. Do you have anything for us?
No real new updates. I got the numbers here in front of me.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, we're up over 1,900 members on Facebook group. The engagement's about the same as most months. And internet traffic is also just a little bit up from. So it evens out throughout the year. We haven't added anything to the website, but for some reason there's more traffic this month. That's all. It's like 19% up. Last month was 24% down. So it's you get it over the year, it's pretty much a wash. That's it.
We haven't had anything new posted to our website that would.
Nothing but the video post and stuff like that I put up there every month after we're done with our meeting here.
All right. Anyone have anything to say? Then
No, I think it's
move
just
along.
business as usual for Facebook. I think there has been a downtick in the number of spam fake accounts. I think I don't feel like we've been getting as many. Or are you just filtering them faster than me, Gabe?
I'm on it. I am very quick to block and ban. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well then, what area updates do we have? Do we have anything for A? Orange Gate Park.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Picking up garbage around Orange continues. I've been unavailable for a lot of October, so I haven't been able to go into the woods to see what the Washington Conservation Corps people have done totally. I probably will be able to do that this month. There's still a lot of vehicles that park on the south side of 84th during the course of the day. I'm not sure how many of them are going into the woods. It does take an hour or so just to clean up the whenever I go to pick up garbage along 84th on the south side of the street. It takes about an hour to go from 50th to 46th.
Mhm.
And I keep reminding the Parks Department to look on the other side of the ecology blocks, because a lot of people throw stuff on the woods side of the ecology blocks and not on the side of the road, which would be easier to pick up.
Mhm. Did I see a Facebook post with inquiries as to how safe the park was? Was that an old post or was that a recent post? I thought it was a recent
Oh.
post.
That was recent.
Mm-hmm. There was a
What
lot
is
of
that?
feedback on that post. Most of it positive.
Okay, what can someone summarize that just real quick? What that posting said?
From my recollection, people were asking how safe the park was and how much it was used, and people were just giving their neighbors who use the park were giving their feedback. So Tiffany Odell was one of the people who answered and said that she took her little girl to the park. And there was nothing new. Some people said it's safe. A lot of people using the park. Some people said there were some activity in the park that was not desirable and to avoid certain areas. Other people noted that occasional break-ins in the cars and that incident that happened when that lady's car was stolen a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago now. And that's all I remember.
Okay, all right. I don't think people are going to see anything really substantial being done to the park until next March.
Mhm. Oh, and they mentioned the development
Mm-hmm.
of the park starting too.
That was on October 23rd.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. Are we ready to leave Orange Gate and Pipeline?
Yep.
Letter A. Okay. Anything for B?
I do not have any updates for B other than I think the county is still planning to have a comment period, a public comment period. Well, it should be happening soon between Thanksgiving and Christmas or January. See. So I'll let you guys know when I hear more.
All right. Thank you. Anything else? C, D. Moving on. E, Dan?
Swan Creek BMX.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a few things. I've been spending a lot of my time working on the Canyon Road brief. Okay, there's a briefing schedule, and I'm working on that. But putting that aside, yeah, on this BMX thing, that involves a 40-acre former gravel pit adjacent to Swan Creek, 50th and Waller Road. And the Summit Waller Community Organization wrote a letter on that, several in fact. And I'm writing a letter, but not on behalf of the Summit Waller Group. You folks we've already done that. This thing goes back to 1979, and even before then, there were 18 civic groups involved. 18 civic groups, citizen groups involved. The county, Pierce County appointed a task group to work on the reclamation of that former gravel pit. I was appointed by the county commissioners at that time. Studies were done. There was a written agreement done. There were, as a result of the reclamation, there were trees planted. There was a wetland / lake pond created. The county came in and hydro seeded it. All of this was oriented towards a future of the area that would not be, in my opinion, a large commercial BMX facility. We're not talking about a little BMX facility. We're talking about one that brings in, from my investigation, a nationwide traffic, loudspeakers, lights. It's huge. The one they have on Ording right now, or somewhere out in Sumner, it's quite large. You can go look online to see it. It does not fit there. Metropolitan Park District recently, within the last 6-7 months, wrote a letter in response to our letter saying that on their portion of Swan Creek, it would be not appropriate to have such a BMX facility at Swan Creek Park. I think, I don't know if I sent that off to you folks or not, but I'll be incorporating it to my letter. This is not just an old abandoned gravel pit that Pierce County Park administrations have just discovered and think there's a use for. This goes back to, if not the public trust, it goes back to public faith in that groups were involved. Many of these people have passed on. This is over 40 years ago. I was just a young punk then. I'm just an old punk now. But there were written agreements. I'll be providing these. There were studies made, one by the late Dr. Jack Hyde, a geologist, the former mayor of Tacoma. He wrote an extensive piece on that regarding the hydrology of the area. And the reclamation plan has been done. Now, that started back in the 70s. The land wasn't transferred to Pierce County from Pierce County Public Works to Parks, I think within the last 5 to 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look into that a little bit more. But it's just sitting there. And then you have these, forgive me for saying these newbies that come along, be their elected county council people or park administration people. They look at it and they say, oh, well, this is what we'll do. We'll bring in this big, large commercial BMX facility and just put it right here. Well, we need to educate them that there's a history. There's been 18 civic organizations. Wherever have you ever seen 18 civic organizations involved? And I have the letters from them. I'm going through archives. It takes me time to pull all this out. I don't want to fly off and just write a letter that kind of wings it. I want to have it fully documented, okay? And so I'm working on that now. And also I'm trying to get an affidavit from a person who knows the area who can testify as to the property being a raptor sanctuary for hawks, eagles, who feed on the lizards and mice and whatever else, rabbits that you'll find there. And it's to put a BMX facility right in the middle of this is just totally, it's questionable, okay? Particularly when on the other side of the canyon, it's being used for activities that frankly scare away the hawks and eagles, such as bicycle motocross, dog parks and such as that. So anyway, I'm working on this. It'll be out before the end of the year. My understanding, and Angela, correct me if I'm wrong, the county's not planning to even start this review until next year. At least that's what they told me. Do you know different, Angela?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Okay. Well, that's what I was told. And so, yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. I'm going to write this letter. I mean, the Swan Walla Group has already written a letter, but we are only one of a prior 18 civic groups. I'm talking the JCs, the Eisenwald Lake Sierra Club. I go to, there's a list, and you'll see the list. And there's also a memorandum of understanding that we all signed. It was approved by the Pierce County commissioners. So anyway, that's all I've got to say for now.
Thank you for your work on that. It sounds extensive.
Expensive?
Extensive.
Oh, it's extensive.
It's a lot of work.
Very expensive too.
All right. I have nothing for G. H. Larry, do you have anything on the farm?
Oh, I've got something to say.
Oh,
Well,
go ahead.
I have something to say as well. Go ahead, Dan.
The Walla Road curve. My wife has been a victim of the Walla Road curve.
No.
Yes.
When?
Oh, last week or so. Nothing major. Going around the curve last week, a big piece of concrete came off and hit her window, and
Oh, crud.
hey, little piss, but you know,
Wow.
that's all.
Glad she's okay.
Like,
Yeah.
Life goes on.
Hmm. Megan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I saw Marty. I don't think it was last weekend. I think it was the weekend before. My days are all running together these days. I'm sorry, guys. I saw him at an event, and I didn't corner him. I just sat down next to him and said hi, and we started talking. So I did ask him if he'd been in contact with you, Jen, and he said no. And I think that there was some I think there's some health issues going on with his partner, from what I understand.
There
So
is. There
yeah,
is.
yeah. So anyway, so all that to say, I just, he's aware. I mean, I think he's aware. I think he's inundated with personal stuff right now. So I just wanted to put that word in. So
That was
And-
nice.
And the council is completely focused on the budget right now.
yes,
It's almost every day of the week. They've got meetings that
Yeah.
are around the budget. So until that gets passed on, I think it's November 17th, I think they're gonna vote on that he'll probably have a little bit more free time, at least professionally. So
well, most of our conversation was centered around if there was any historical grant funding for the Grange and the schoolhouse on the Grange. So we did talk about that's what we mostly talked about. So I actually didn't bring up the lights. I was pretty proud of myself.
Oh, I skipped off. I wrote an inquiry letter to Pierce County. I inquired as to who I should direct the letter to because it's a little watery on their website. And then they wrote back something to the effect of, oh, if you want lightings, you have to talk to the county council and this and that. And I'm thinking, that's not what I asked you. I asked you to whom I should send this letter. But by that time, I figure I guess I'll send it to them. So I wrote something up. I sent it in. I documented that the council had already, I pulled up that resolution that I sent you all earlier and Larry responded to and said this was approved years ago. I re-articulated that kids are waiting in the dark. It's a safety issue, yada, yada, and haven't heard back. But I did do that.
I might have to go make my stand in person again. I might need to figure out a time to do that. Life's a little busy right now, but I will sure as heck try.
We might go the school district route as well. I don't know what they can do. Maybe they could put a little pressure on. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Larry, did you have any update on the farm? Lots of construction. Looks different every time I drive by.
Yeah, with in October, just so many things going on. 4 funerals, one in Spokane, had a bad cold, dealing with the state stuff with my aunt. So my intention was to go to one of the Franklin Pierce school board meetings and tell them how pleased we are as a community association about the construction of this new facility that they're currently constructing at the farm. I have yet to do that. If I have time, I will try to get to one either this month or in December. Probably more like in December. One of their meetings. Other than that, and to make sure that they get across the idea that there needs to be a posted Jim Akers acre, because the last time I talked with the manager at the farm, it was, what? What's that? So we need to remind them that of the importance that Jim Akers had in the development there at the farm, and that an acre was to be dedicated to Jim Akers' memory, and we intend to see that through.
And Larry Vola too, he helped.
I'm sorry, what?
I said Larry Volan helped too, didn't he? There should be a Volan acre.
Yeah, I helped out too. Yeah, that's true. No,
Does it need
I don't need it.
It's posthumous only.
Jim went well beyond whatever I did. He did 10 times more than I did.
Does it need to be an acre, Larry, or can it be a room or a classroom or a
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I think we had discussed in the past, maybe quite a while in the past, that if a facility was built, that we would encourage the school board to dedicate one of the rooms to Jim Akers.
Hmm.
I don't see why we can't promote both.
Ask for both and you might get one. So there you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
all right?
Yeah, I withdraw my concerns about the lack of eaves on the building. I was concerned about that because, you know, the rain comes in from the sides and it just rots out your walls. What they're doing, they painted it with a red guard product, which apparently is going to protect the plywood. And I guess I really like it. It doesn't look like a house, but it doesn't look like a commercial property either. They got the really cool looking, it's rather nice looking.
Well, we'll see what it's like when they're finished.
Yeah.
They are considering, I think they're still considering whether to tear down the caretaker's house or whether to remodel it and bring it up to code for whatever purpose. I'm not sure. I would encourage them to remodel the house and have somebody live there because it's not next to a school. It would become a pretty vulnerable place without somebody living in that house. Or they can tear it down and bring in a modular home or something, but I think there
I
needs
think
to be
with
some.
students working out there, they're probably not going to house somebody. Just saying.
Well, they have in the past. They've had a caretaker there before.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Wake up,
Mr.
Don.
Mr. McClary, what time is he supposed to arrive?
He'll probably be here in just a few minutes. If you want, in the meantime, I can kind of give you the high level summary of the litter reduction recommendations. If you
That would be
want.
lovely because
Okay.
despite my I will read it over the weekend thing, I had 102 fever all weekend and did nothing
Yeah.
but stay in my bed.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was a budget proviso last year, in 2022. And there was this proviso to study illegal dumping and litter reduction. And they formed a task force, and over the last year, they've been looking to come up with some recommendations. As we know, littering and illegal dumping has been a huge concern. So I will just kind of briefly walk you through the task force recommendations that are the high priority, medium priority, and then they have some lower priority recommendations. For the high priority, they want to expand the Adopt a Road program. And so they'd be looking to double the amount of funding that comes with that program over the next 2 years. And a medium priority is a marine debris cleanup. And again, providing funding for, kind of expanding on the volunteer collection program that serves the road right of way. But then we also have some marine debris that oftentimes needs help as well. So expanding that to include marine debris cleanup. Another is to coordinate additional community cleanup events. and equitable voucher program. So right now the county, I think, posts, I don't know, like a dozen community cleanup events each year. And I think they've had some at Ford Middle School before, Washington High School. They kind of had them around the county. So they might look to have more of those where people can bring heavy, bulky items that you can't fit into a trash can easily, that like to get dumped, like mattresses and tires and just household garbage that, you know, some people just can't get rid of. And then a voucher program that comes
Where are
with.
these on the,
What's that, Jen?
what priority levels were these?
The marine debris and the community cleanups are still a medium priority.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and so the voucher program is providing people with a voucher for like a free dump run. So I have yet to get one in my mail. I don't know why I haven't gotten one in my mail, but I know other people in the community have often received those. Another strategy is to expand the cities and towns litter credit program. So delivering more litter credits with the hopes that cities and towns can increase their litter pickup events as well. So it's not just the county doing something, but it's the county and the cities all across the county working together. Expanding their education campaign from the harmful impacts of roadside litter, graffiti, illegal dumping, et cetera, et cetera. And this just screams like Jim Akers all over, because he kept saying, bring back the, you know, don't be a litter bug kind of campaign. And he said, we don't do that anymore. And I remember him saying that multiple times. That's what actually put money into an education campaign about littering and don't be a litter bug kind of thing. There is a program in Tacoma. It's called Tidy Up Tacoma, and they go around and they focus on certain problem areas where, let's be honest, they haven't maintained their own sidewalks or right of way, and then they go through and they clean that up, whether it's vegetation or litter and debris pickup. So the idea would be to expand this potentially countywide. And the last strategy is expanded reach of the Earth Matters newsletter. So I think if you're a Pierce County resident, unincorporated Pierce County resident, we already receive those newsletters, but expanding that to just kind of help spread the word about what programs are available and what services are available and what to recycle, what not to recycle, list of resources for people. So so those are some of the strategies that they have recommended as part of that litter reduction and illegal dumping task force. If you want to read the entire 8 pages, you can. It's not too crazy, but there you go. That's it in a nutshell. Give a hoot, don't pollute. Thank you. That's what it was.
Woodsy the owl.
Larry.
Angela, was there anything in there about any positive signage, like help keep Pierce County litter free, or even some negative signage like illegal dumping, $10,000 fine, whatever the fine amount is?
You know, that's a good question. Let's see if there's anything here about signage. It doesn't look. Oh, hold on. Yeah, hold on 1 second here.
Dean did hop on, by the way. Yep.
Yeah. Well, we see you, Dean. You're next. Yes. So the installation of additional signage regarding litter and illegal dumping fines is part of that outreach and engagement budget.
Okay.
Budget item. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome. I thought that would be of interest because we're always talking about litter and litter, you know, and illegal dumping, and so I thought it would be of interest to you guys.
It is. Welcome, Mr. McClary.
Good evening. Yes,
Hey,
keep
Dean.
going. I'll do a transition when you're ready.
All right. Well,
We're ready.
I can introduce you, Dean.
Okay.
So I don't know if you all remember when Mike Poteet from the he's an agricultural planner, as is Dean, as part of our Planning and Public Works Long Range Planning Division. And Mike came and talked to us about this agricultural drainage support tool that's, can be really used for those that have not just farms or
Right.
agricultural, like active agriculture on their property, but just large kind of rural landowners. And that's a support tool that he educated us with. So Dean works with Mike, and Dean was giving a presentation recently about some of the efforts that he's working on in Swan Creek.
Mhm.
And my ears instantly perked up because like, ooh, tell me more about Swan Creek. Because that's in Summit Waller. And
Sure.
so I invited him to join us this evening to just give us an overview of the work that he's doing specifically with Swan Creek and an existing drainage district. And so he has a presentation, Gabe. So if you could let him share his screen, that will be helpful. So I'll turn it over to you, Dean.
Sounds great. I'll go ahead. I see a share screen button here, so I'll go ahead.
Let's give it a try here. Let's try it one more time.
No problem. Okay, give me a second.
And one thing, Dan, that Dean is not going to talk about is the 64th Street crossing at Swan Creek. That is totally unrelated to Dean's area of expertise. So give him a break.
Okay, thank you. I think we're just about there. Give me a second. I've got my buttons are hiding. Let's see. There we go.
There you go.
We're good to go?
Perfect.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Well, thank you. That was a very nice introduction, Angela. I appreciate that. And I'll just comment that the reason in part you're going to find this presentation dovetails what you maybe have heard from Mike Poteet at some point, but at the same time, a little bit different is based on the scope of work that we do. So actually what Angela referred to as the drainage tool in part came out of a initiative at the county level through what was called a drainage task force to recognize, it was a recognition, excuse me, that in fact there was a need for drainage support throughout the county in rural areas. Well, one of the things that also came out of that, besides the actual tool, was advocacy by the Drainage Task Force for a second person to provide support for agricultural and natural resource initiatives in these areas. And that, in fact, was the seat I now am in. And one of the tasks I was originally given in the first year I've been in this position is to try to find ways to improve constituent access to resources, to provide support for what are now 7 active drainage districts in Pierce County. So one of the districts you may know about is in fact found in Swan Creek, and they have been, of the 7 districts, they're still at some level of formal activity providing drainage services in their service areas. They've been one of the most active. I've done a lot of work with them since I've been in my position for a little over a year. The second thing that has led me to Swan Creek, besides Drainage District 14, is trying to help constituents in that basin with specific drainage issues. So what came out of that is opportunities for me to engage with different, not only constituents and drainage districts, but also within our county system, is saying, what can we do not just to address the immediate, not just to deal with the crises, but what are some things we can consider for future possibilities in this drainage basin? So I'll take a few minutes to share that with you. What I'd like to also do is recognize, and you have every right to, when we wrap things up, to please go ahead and ping me with some questions. I will just share a couple caveats. Is I'm not an expert on Swan Creek, but I think I've learned enough that maybe I have a few things that would be helpful to you. And number 2 caveat is I'm very much of a lifelong learner. Part of me being here is not just to somehow be some fountain of truth, but really I'd like to hear from you as well. What are some things that we can learn from this group that is about us maybe partnering in the future for places like Swan Creek? All right, Nifik Yak. So what I'd like to do is just take a couple minutes before we get to some formal Q&A is perhaps fill in some dots for you. Maybe somebody's just going to kind of nod your head and say, yeah, I know that about Swan Creek. So what I'd like to specifically do is in the next like 10 minutes is provide a little bit of historical background about Swan Creek, talk about what I have found as I've spent a lot of time in that basin, present a few things that we're looking at based upon some positions that Mike and I sit on with different collaborative groups, excuse me, within the county, as well as other organizations, and then just some final reflections, and then Q&A. All right. So when we talk about Swan Creek, one of the things that you need to understand is that in large part it's defined not by its geology, but it's actually defined in part by history. In other words, there is reason to believe there probably was a natural creek up there in that area before pioneers began to arrive, probably much shorter than it is today. But it makes sense based on what we know about the topography up there, that in fact there was probably some natural drainage of wetlands, maybe some type of seepage from springs down into the Clear Creek Basin. So that is to say that to go all the way back in time, we believe, and I've been engaged with different county folks about this, probably what we would call a traditional Doug fir, lowland forest. There are some isolated potential potholes, or we've seen some of those up there as well. But really, Swan Creek historically is defined by work that was done by pioneers to go ahead and drain some of those areas. And that came out of a desire to use state initiatives to allow for the development of what are called special service districts. So Drainage District 14 was initially approved by the county back in 1919. There was a bit of a snafu with the original design of that drainage system, and so they had to do a rework of the plans. The ditch was finally completed as a system to service that area in 1922. So it's been in position or in place for over 100 years. So really, Swan Creek is defined by that historical act of people working together to drain that area. The other thing that's really interesting about that Swan Creek is that the county, and I have actually talked to some of the major kind of oligarchs of our system about this. We don't exactly know why, but there is in fact on the main branch of what we call Swan Creek within this Drainage District 14, 5 1-acre parcels that belong to the county. And to the best of our ability, those were purchased for the benefit of Drainage District 14. They're there to allow Drainage District 14 to continue to provide services of eliminating seasonal flooding in that area. Well, what about today? That's you and I now, right? So Swan Creek is quite interesting in terms of a couple different lenses we'll shift. We'll look at the lens of current zoning. Most of the land that you see on that illustration is what we refer to as called rural separator. There's about 8 different rural residential classifications we use in the county at this particular time. But it's a really interesting zoning because what it really is what we think of as a buffer. You are not completely rural, but you're not completely urban. You're in a transitory environment. There is a couple of other zonings we find in the Swan Creek area related to, there's a mid-county community plan. We have some neighborhood and employment corridors as well. What we do find is today is generally what you think of as a transition zone between urban to rural. Oversized lots where you have people that might just treat it as a oversized lot to run their dog on, but you also have people that have some interest in some level we might call weekender or / hobby farming. Mike and I just were in fact engaging with a constituent in this area who had an interest in what we call an agritourism venture that recognizes that there's very good agricultural soils there. There's large enough parcels to do something that's significant, and that would be an example of something that could fit in a rural separator environment. Well, let's look at another lens. This is probably more what your area of interest is some of the things that we think of as some of the problems, right? So even though the drainage district has been in place for over 100 years, For better or for worse, I've actually looked at a lot of historical records dating from the 1920s all the way through the current about Drainage District 14 for various reasons. And it's very clear that even back in the 1930s and 40s, there was persistent problems with flooding in what we call that Swan Creek area, even with the drainage district in place. Something we're now much more aware of as constituents and as the county is not just the movement of water, but the quality of the water. So there's a more recent understanding that Swan Creek does have some issues, what we would refer to as some water quality hotspots. There's some high nutrient loads coming into a couple of those areas in that system that we're aware of. Another issue that I've become very aware of as I've worked with Drainage District 14 has been the reality that they have done historically very little with the removal of the natural accumulation of sediments in the system. So there's been a buildup of sediments as a function of water just moving during flood events. The type of soils up there are quite light. They're we call alluvial materials that they move quickly and then they settle. And what that's done is it's actually reduced the capacity of Swan Creek / Drainage District 14 to do their job. There's just not as much water capacity in that system. And so I'm very much aware of that. The other thing that we are aware of that I'm aware of now on the county side that you might be interested to know is we have a lot of county assets in that basin. So what we mean by that is these are different structures and systems in place that we call catch basins, drainage systems. They're all part of the county trying to address long-term concerns about seasonal flooding, high water tables that can endanger constituents, of course, and of course their properties. So that's the second lens. So then a few more things related to this topic of where we're at today. We've got there's a recognition, again, back to I want to continue to kind of beat the drum of water quality. We're aware that there are probably, and by the way, in saying this, there's no implication that we know who they are, but we are aware that there are probably in this rural separate area where you're not connected to current sewage disposal systems, that you probably have some old septic systems that are just not functioning properly. And those are a very traditional source of biological oxygen demand materials, nutrients. And that's what's referred to in the second bullet there. We have very low summer water flow in Swan Creek. I've been in that basin a lot this past summer. I was helping Drainage District 14 with some issues involving their sedimentation. I've walked most of that basin when it is literally completely dry. And the last thing I'll just mention is that Drainage District 14, again, this is there's no in saying this judgment per se, but many of the districts have to this day still follow relatively traditional patterns for the maintenance of those systems. So they really focus on ditch cleaning, ditch maintenance of alls, controlling the reed canary grass. That's an invasive species. But there's not a lot of thought about what can we do to address things in a different way. And I'm hoping perhaps there's an opportunity for me to work with them through building relationships to maybe improve that. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. So let's do that. Talk about future possibilities. So the main thing that the county has asked me to do is provide, as we often do in our egg planting program, is we don't come in as necessarily as the technical experts. We're not being asked to be the yes or no person. We're not regulatory. We're definitely not enforcement. We're trying to get people to work together. So what I'm currently doing is trying to help Drainage District 14 with some spot sedimentation issues that are affecting some of our county assets. So I'm working with them literally with where can the money come from. I actually have done some sediment surveying in the basin, so I know how to help them know where to go first. But what we really like to do is to actually look at Swan Creek, based on the fact we are calling it a creek, is to treat it like a creek, right? So probably what many of you are aware of is that many of the main trunk Swan Creek banks are not in the best of shape. There's some that are very good. Like I said, I've walked most of that basin multiple times. But we do have a lot of invasive species. We have bank erosion issues. We say it's incising. The water, when it's moving at high volumes, is actually picking up that very light alluvial material. cutting into the bank and changing the bank geometry. And that's a concern. It puts sediment into the water. It adds, as we call, turbidity. It makes things unstable. So we'd like to be able to look long-term at the possibility of actually treating those banks as we call riparian zones. That's how we describe natural creeks, is to get those stabilized, use natural vegetation for the long term. In doing so, what that would provide for us as constituents, not only in Swan Creek, but in Pierce County, is a system that provides more increased wildlife habitat. When you do that type of work, we know that you also improve water quality, as well as potentially water quantity in the summertime. So those are some things we like to look at. One of the things, last thing I'll comment on in terms of the future, we have 7 different road crossings by the county through Swan Creek. I've again been at all of those multiple times, and they're very traditional ditch systems with roadside ditches, excuse me, just draining unimpeded into Swan Creek. And we know there's now technology that's not like rocket technology, where there could be some potential modifications of those crossings, and specifically those roadside culverts, to do a better job of kind of naturally cleansing and removing impurities that come from roadside materials washing off the roads. So that's that last bullet. So just a couple last reflections. I'd love to hear from you. Where are we at in this whole process? So I have been advocating for some work in Swan Creek for the last 6 months in the context of recognizing lots of local interest in this basin. I specifically provide some technical advisement to a collaborative group in the county that is in fact looking at using some Department of Ecology grant dollars to improve, we call it tributary functions, not within the Puyallup. Swan Creek drains into the Puyallup River. So we're working on that. We recognize, like, just by this invitation to be here, we've identified a number of groups that like to work in Swan Creek, would like to see Swan Creek be improved. So we think we've got a lot of good potential partners in the future. What's really cool about Swan Creek is, even though I tend to be on what I call the farm side, I'm on the agriculture side, there really is the opportunity for us to address what we call the 3 Fs, and those are good Fs. So we talk about fish, we talk about farm, we talk about flood. And so what I mean by that is, even though Swan Creek will probably in the short term never be, we call, directly salmonid bearing, right? Because of those, what most of us know is the nature of those natural areas down to the north end on the way into Clear Creek. But what you do have is the very important need for tributaries to in fact provide clean water for salmonid habitat, which is what Clear Creek is. So that's the fish part. We've got great agricultural lands. We've got oversized lots. There's a potential for some fun, interesting long-term farming in Swan Creek. And finally, the thing that has been part of the Swan Creek story historically, and always probably will be, is how do we minimize the flood issues? And that's it. Well, thank you for a chance to be here. Again, I come as a learner. If there's something I could respond to, I may have to say, well, let me check on that for you. But go ahead if you have anything you'd like to share with me.
Thank you, Dean, for that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Is it time for questions and answers?
Go for
You
it, Dan.
betcha. You bet. Please do.
First of all, Dean, thank you very much for the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
I have a personal interest in Swan Creek. I've been involved with that since the 60s. My parents owned approximately 100 acres of what is now Swan Creek Park.
Mm-hmm.
They did it, it's a long story.
Yeah.
I just want to make an observation that I hope that you will take at heart, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with the rural separator.
Yes.
It has to do with sewers.
Yes.
Or the lack of sewers.
Yeah.
Now, if this whole area out here, the rural separator, was sewered,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have high density development.
You have to justify the expense. That's true. It's kind of a catch-22, isn't it?
1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah, you bet.
And that equals urban runoff. And we're talking about a whole different problem.
Right. We call those impervious surfaces. Yes, sir. That's correct.
You can look at the such surfaces in various areas of the counties and cities that have been ruined, Clover Creek, those areas.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, you have no sewers. You have low density by definition, as we have now,
Mm-hmm.
and you have no urban runoff and those associated problems.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. If you have no sewers, you occasionally encounter failing septic tanks.
Correct.
Okay, and that creates a problem that you've discussed tonight,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Now, I received in my mail, and I'm sure we all received in our mails, notices from the county that we're supposed to upgrade our septics and have them
Right.
checked and so forth. The
Sure.
county's more aggressive in that,
That is true. I would agree.
and I support that. I just want you to know. So when you go back to your work on Swan Creek, which involves the real separator,
Mm-hmm.
take it from somebody who's been involved. I held my first picket sign when I was 10 years old in front of the county city building. They wanted to make a garbage dump out of Swan Creek Park.
Oh boy. Yeah.
You wouldn't have a job, sir, if that was the case, because it'd be a landfill.
Yeah.
So take it back to your group, if you would, that it's a combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the rural separator equals low density equals no urban runoff. But at the same time, I think there needs to be an effort to continue over the long term to deal with the septic systems.
I agree. Yeah.
And I see, since the county's been sending out those notices,
Mhm.
I've been seeing a lot of septic work done on various properties. Okay, maybe
That's a good
something
thing.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's life. That's the way it is. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be responsible. The other issue I want to bring up, this is a second issue.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people in the up areas up towards 112th, 84th, 96 who have hobby farms.
Yes, that's true. Yep. I've seen them.
They've complained about the county, encroaching on their ability to farm and prevent, farmyard debris and waste going into the creek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think you folks need to educate those people and let them know that their rights to own the land isn't, 100%. They can't, pollute state water. But
Right.
at the same time, we don't want to alienate those people because they're supporters of the real separator.
Yes, that is correct.
We got two balancing things going on here. One,
Oh, yes.
I described them, and I think you can see that.
Mhm.
And other than that, I want to thank you for being involved. I was involved with the, well, I won't go into it. Thank you for your work, sir.
Oh, you bet. Thank you. The other thing that I think that is part of what you're describing, and I think it's something we are still trying to figure out, and what our role to play in the egg program is in the county, is what we call constituent education. Because one of the things that was frankly a surprise to me until I actually started to study Swan Creek is the fact that what you're describing is, I understand the constituent angst about I can't do this next to the creek, but the thing that's interesting about Swan Creek, like I mentioned, is most of the main trunk doesn't even belong to them. Now it's a very narrow buffer, okay? So if we actually look at what the county owns, 5 1-acre parcels. Well, if you take a 1-acre parcel, but it's only 16 feet long, 16 feet wide, my apologies. It becomes very, very long. So constituents actually, many of the ones you're describing actually don't even own to the creek. What they actually have is permission at some level to be there, but really the ownership belongs to the county. Now, I say that carefully because Swan Creek, even though it was originally ditched, right, 101 years ago, it has wandered. I mean, I've seen that looking at some historical pictures. We're trying to actually help a constituent right now with regards to how his parcel has been impacted by this wandering creek at kind of a dog leg in the main trunk. So why do I share that? Dan, what I'm just trying to say is that that's an educational piece, right? Many people just don't realize that when they think about my property goes to Swan Creek, the answer is it probably doesn't if you're on the main trunk. It actually belongs to Planning and Public Works.
Well, let me say this.
Sure.
I thought I knew everything about Swan Creek.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is news to me tonight. I didn't know there was a long, skinny parcel. You said 5.
There's 5 of them. Yeah.
where are these square parcels? Where are they located? And what you're saying is essentially a very skinny parcel.
It is. Yes, sir.
Is this an
Yes.
easement or a fee simple absolute?
It's actually, that's a good question. No, it's not an easement owned for the purposes, a special easement for Drainage District 14. Those are parcels actually belong to the county. And again, I have dug and went from one layer to the next, trying to find out when did it occur? Why did it occur? All we know is it occurred. They exist. And again, what I was told by one of the great kind of technical experts in our system is that most likely at some point those were created for the purposes of protecting the historical opportunity and, in a sense, the requirement for Drainage District 14 to do their service work. It only exists on the main channel.
Access, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very much, yeah. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Good
you.
insights.
Thank you. Well, now let's talk about 64th Street.
And that really is an area outside my my work area. So just so you know, when Angela shared that, so I really do just work in what's called the Drainage District 14 area, which actually goes up to 80th, and that I stopped there. That doesn't mean, by the way, that under the right circumstances, if there's a nexus of an issue for those type of constituents with agriculture, then in fact that becomes something potential we would look at. But at this point, from my seat, been here for just over a year, that's as far as I've gotten.
So I'm looking at the Pierce County ownership right now, and the parcels seem to be really kind of spread out between 84th and 512. Are those the ones you're referring to, Dean?
Yes, that's correct. On the main channel.
It doesn't seem like there's a rhyme or reason as to, like looking at it visually.
Yeah. I've talked to some of the main kind of fountains of historical knowledge in our system, and no one really quite has a handle on why they're there. But like I said, they are. And so we live with them. We try. In fact, we're just to say, well, what can we do to use those in an appropriate way? I guess the one nice thing, as I say this carefully, is it does give with formal county ownership over the main trunk of that old historical drainage district an opportunity, working with Drainage District 14 and of course with constituents, to actually potentially do some restoration on it, because we quote unquote own it. We're not having to necessarily have to engage with every single constituent on the main trunk. That doesn't mean you don't educate, right? And it doesn't mean you don't seek cooperation. But it gives us a little bit, maybe kind of some legal leverage to move forward on some things to improve that system that maybe it'd be more difficult to do in the over time.
Thanks for the information.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for letting me come. Angela, thanks again for the invite. I'll let you folks get back to your visiting. And again, it was a pleasure to be here. Feel free. Angela knows I'm available. So if something comes up in your interactions with, whether it's the person in the door that's closed right now because they're waiting for you to finish up, or the neighbor down the street that involves Swan Creek, let me know. And we'd love to support you.
Thank you for joining us, Dean. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Good. Have a good evening.
You too.
Hey, Gabe, question. On the screen, it came a little thing telling me to unmute.
Yeah, when you started talking about 64th Street, I decided to mute you.
Are you serious? I like to crack a joke once in a while.
No, it was, you said it, I muted you, then immediately asked you to unmute. That was just joking
But
around.
I crack a joke, man. That's not the time to mute me. That's the time to amplify me, okay?
No, we got that part, but you stopped talking. I didn't let you go any further.
No.
Yeah.
I understand, Gabe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss this evening?
I moved to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
I was just going to say really quick though, that Holiday Bazaar is at the Waller Grange this weekend on Saturday. Just don't forget. I just wanted to put a plug in. That's it. Holiday Bazaar, the Mary Bridge Brigade Holiday Bazaar is at the Grange this weekend. It's from 9 to 2 on Saturday. So I'm going to be in Niagara Falls. Sounds romantic, but not in November. So
Oh, don't fall in.
I don't even know. I mean, I'll go and look, but I don't plan on getting very close. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be cold.
You need a second? I'll second.
Yes. All right. All in favor of adjourning this evening?
See you next month.
That was the only thing we actually voted on.
Are we in person or are we virtual next month? Aren't we still
Yeah.
virtual?
The agenda
still
said
virtual.
in person on Zoom. I was like, I'm so confused.
The
Oh.
agenda said both things, so I wanted to confirm.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, I apologize. I'm tired. I believe
Okay.
our next in